Marina raised Sarah alone, and the girl grew up easily trusting people and a little naive. It was not difficult to gain her trust. When Sarah was 23 years old, Marina introduced a stepfather into their lives. Unfortunately, the man disliked Sarah from the very beginning. He was arrogant and always wanted to prove his superiority. Sarah disliked him. Despite this, she tried to avoid him as much as possible. She focused on her studies, attending the institute, and even enrolled in a 3D drawing course. She even considered enrolling in a guitar-playing school, just to keep herself busy. However, her stepfather strongly rejected the idea due to her lack of hearing. One day, Sarah became seriously ill, and she had to be treated for almost a month. Marina was busy with work and could not take care of her daughter. By coincidence, her stepfather was on vacation and had a lot of free time. During this period, Sarah was able to see him from a different side. While her mother was away from home, he took attentive care of her. He even offered to drive her to and from the clinic for physical therapy sessions. Sarah hadn't experienced such unconditional care in a long time. Her mother worked all the time, and Sarah was used to taking care of herself. The warmth and care shown by her stepfather melted her heart. As Sarah recovered, her perception of her stepfather changed. They began to have breakfast as a family, and on weekends they went out of town or shopping together. At first, Marina was happy about these positive changes, but then she began to notice something suspicious. Sarah smiled at her stepfather in a special way, and he did not mind smiling back. Sarah, who used to be aggressive towards him, became a completely different person in his presence. Marina's intuition did not fail her. One evening, she came home from work earlier than usual. What she saw there shocked her daughter with her stepfather in the bedroom. To such a sight, she was not ready. Overwhelmed with strong emotions, Marina began to shout at him and demanded that he leave. The daughter quickly realized that she needed to make a scene to create the impression that her stepfather compromised her. After all, if she confessed her feelings to her mother, then, in her opinion, the latter will despise her. Marina gathered Michael's things and threw him out into the street. Although she felt sad to be alone again, she could not accept his betrayal. Daughter Sarah supported her mother and hid her feelings for the man. However, Sarah was deeply in love and could no longer contain her emotions. She urgently needed to confide in someone. After calming her mother and promising to return soon, Sarah left home. She sought comfort from her classmate Emily. Sarah and Emily had long been close friends, and Sarah trusted her completely. With tears in her eyes, Sarah stood on the doorstep, unable to enter. Emily opened the door with surprise on her face and exclaimed, "Why are you knocking like that? Come in already." Sarah burst into tears, feeling the ground go from under her feet. In a trembling voice, she narrated the events that had taken place. "You know how I despised him at first, but then suddenly fell in love. My friend couldn't believe what she heard. Thinking he was already old and you had already managed to fall in love with him? We weren't even close at that point. My mom caught us at the worst possible moment, just exchanging pleasantries and kissing." Emily was struck by her friend's innocence and remarked, "Thank God you didn't make any mistakes. He's just taking advantage of you." Emily assumed that since Marina was constantly busy with work, he was just looking for a woman's affection and decided to take advantage of the situation. However, Sarah assured her friend that he wasn't like that and that Michael was a decent man. Emily promised to keep everything she learned that night a secret, although she couldn't understand what her friend found in this man. There were plenty of attractive guys her age around. Now it became difficult for the lovers to find more time to spend together. Since Sarah had a boyfriend, it was important for her to introduce him to her mother. But how to explain her love for her stepfather, even if he is her mother's ex-lover? So the girl asked Emily to cover for her sometimes and pretend that her friend was visiting her. This was not difficult for Emily since she is single and lives alone. This allowed Sarah to spend more time with Michael. All would have been fine if it weren't for the woman's jealousy. Besides, Emily herself did not have the best relationships with guys. Like any girl, She too longed for a love as pure as Sarah and Michael's. They seemed so happy together, and envy began to take over Emily. She began to think of ways to separate the sweet couple, convinced that Michael was no match for Sarah. The lovers often argued about where to go and how to spend their time because of the significant age difference. Michael, being a busy doctor, was constantly tired, while Sarah, being a student, led a privileged lifestyle. She even sacrificed her studies to spend more time with him, which also bothered Emily. One day, Sarah's mother visited Emily's house. Marina happened to be passing by and decided to ask her best friend why her daughter was having difficulty in her studies. After all, it was the last year of school and it was impossible to fall behind. Emily hesitated for a long time, torn between her conscience and her desire to help Sarah avoid mistakes and overcome her envy of other people's happiness. Finally, she gave in and mentioned that she had a mature partner. Mole doesn't know who exactly, but she doesn't like that her friend has fallen under a negative influence. Mom was shocked. It seemed unreal and impossible. "Emily, did you see him?" "I just happened to see them together from the back." She couldn't give any more details. In Marina's mind, doubts were growing rapidly. Then an idea struck her. Not long ago, Marina had met with a local police officer. He even expressed interest in going out with her. However, she asked him to wait. Now, she would have to approach him herself. Scrunching up her nose, Marina thought to herself. She dialed the number of the district police officer and asked for a meeting. During dinner, they decided to spend time in a small, cozy cafe. The policeman behaved rather insistently, but Marina preferred to ignore his advances. However, when there was no more patience, she gathered courage and said, "Peter, I would like to ask you something. It's about my daughter. I believe she needs my help. A policeman has offered to help her with a private investigation, but in return he has asked that she meet with him again. Perhaps in the same cafe." Marina reluctantly agreed. A few days later, Peter learned the identity of the man Sarah was meeting with and gave his name to Marina. She was at a loss for words. "Are you serious? Is this really my ex?" There was no doubt about it. The policeman was a professional at his job. Promising a second date, Marina hurried home. A storm was brewing in the house. Sarah was just at home, and her mother, as best she could, told her everything. "So you've been doing this for a long time. It's so disgusting. Oh my God. Oh my God." Sarah was crying, begging me to understand. "I love him, and he loves me." "You don't understand anything, Mom." Marina held a grudge against her daughter for a long time, all the while shedding tears, convinced that Michael was taking advantage of the naive girl. Marina was torn. She advised her daughter not to hurry with marriage until she finished her studies at the university. The exams were approaching. The girls' grades were falling. Sarah vowed that her mother would be proud of her daughter and that she would graduate with honors. She felt guilty for stealing her lover and worried about her mother's pain. However, her love for her mother motivated her to keep her promise. Sarah passed her exams and received her diploma. Everything fell into place. Marina found a new love. It was the same policeman named Peter, and they started a relationship. She left her resentment towards her daughter and forgave them both. The sweet couple went their separate ways. Her ex was not ready for a serious commitment, and having children was not in his plans. Sarah was wrong about Michael. He turned out to be a typical bad boy. A few months later, when Sarah had recovered from her former stepfather's betrayal, she met a guy 2 years older than herself, and they were soon married. They were expecting a boy, which they found out about on an ultrasound.